There
My
we go.
end.
Hi, Rocco.
There you are. And then you
Hey.
said on my end. Thank you.
How's it
How's
going
it
today?
going? Great to meet. Where are you based?
Philadelphia.
Okay, cool, cool. I'm down in Washington, D.C. So just
Oh, okay, that's
down the
not
road.
fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, welcome to Grue, and thank you so much for taking time and coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, excited to chat. Excited to chat.
Thank, thank you. So, like, the first thing I want to start out asking you is, what inspired you and Pete to want to make the film Join or Die?
Yeah, so we are a brother-sister producing team. So Pete was my younger brother, a student of Robert Putnam's, who's the kind of
Oh,
main protagonist of this film. He's an academic and author of many books, but probably his most famous book is Bowling Alone, which charted the decline in American civic life and participation over the last, the second half of the last century, kind of from the 1960s until 2000 when the book came out.
mm,
And at the time that we approached Bob, it was 2017. So we worked on this project for about 7 years now. It's been a long
wow.
journey. I was working at that moment as a news producer at NBC News, covering a lot of the symptoms of this bowling alone phenomenon on the
Mm,
ground as I was flying around the US, meeting people that just had a sense that, they felt lonely, they felt isolated, their communities weren't working as well. And that political polarization was feeling to them
mm,
at an all-time high, as the data also backs up. And at that moment Pete was about 10 years out of being a student of Bob's, and Bob was about to retire from teaching. So we approached him in 2017 and said, what do you think about a documentary about your work that, as we come up on the 20th anniversary of Bowling Alone, it was going to hit 20 years in 2020. um, at that time we thought maybe we'd release the film in 2020. It didn't end up getting out until 2023. But year over year, I think these issues have just become that much more urgent and front of mind for a lot of Americans about how is our civic and community life doing? How could it be better? And we think that Bob has a lot of answers in his research.
yeah, definitely. And like, what did what did what do you love about Bob's work, about all the great stuff that he's done throughout the years?
Yeah, I think for me and my brother, I think we're kind of coming at it from a similar place. Pete was a political science student and went on to
Mm,
kind of work in policy work. And I think what he loved about Bob's class was that while other professors were kind of drawing everyone's attention to the president and Congress and the
yeah.
United Nations and kind of these big players in the political system, Bob was kind of calling on people, his students, and in his books that he was putting out, calling on people to look at our normal neighbor to neighbor connections and bonds and the roles that those play in our democracy being strong. And for myself, someone who'd spent time as a journalist covering kind of American civic and community life, mostly working on stories in the U.S. I liked that Bob lifted up the ideas of everyday American kind of civic innovators as a place where we might look to for the solution. So that, I think our message with the film that we hope to get out is, if you're feeling tired on a Thursday and not sure about going to that meeting, of your book club or your sports league, know that there are real political implications, and Bob has some of the data to back that theory up. That these are important places where we need to be working on strengthening our democratic bonds.
Oh, wow, nice. And how did you come up with the name of the film? Because like when you hear something like that, it definitely jumps out, like Join or Die.
Yes, yes. No, and we realize the title is provocative, and some people have written to us, that they don't care for it, which, we
Oh
we
no.
we respect their
Oh
their their
no.
feeling, but we do feel we stand by the title, and we do feel like the stakes are that high. Both on the, we see the title functioning in two ways, both on the individual level, and we feature in the film the Surgeon General, who's been talking a lot about the individual health impacts of our loneliness and isolation, um, and on this kind of larger, more grandiose level of our democracy being in real peril of making it if we aren't kind of participating. And, in this election year where there's a lot of conversations happening right now about the importance of voting, we agree getting out there and voting and participating in the democratic process is very important. But we also want to offer some counter programming to that lifts up the idea of joining and the word join, to that same level of importance as voting, as a key part of, what it means to be part of a democracy. And an important part of our democracy being strong is us joining and participating.
Nah, yeah, I mean, every vote counts. Like, it's important for us to actually go out and vote whoever you're voting for, because
Totally.
your vote counts, and
Yep.
the person becoming the president.
Totally. And, and I think we also want to see people voting in their civic, associations too, for the president of their local Rotary Club also. Because, I think that's where we also build trust in the process, practicing democracy on the local level, even as we watch it play out, alongside our national politics.
Definitely, yes. And how important do you feel it is for us, for Americans to join clubs and vote and all the fun stuff that comes with it?
Yeah. I mean, we think it's very important, and we, Bob's data bears that out. And I think, that was a thing that we loved about getting to highlight his work is, I think it's something we all feel, that these things are important, our community life, our civic bonds. And Bob's work puts real data, behind that in showing its implications for our levels of, trust of our neighbors, our levels of trust in institutions. When, he calls this idea of our community bonds and the trust and reciprocity that comes out of that, his academic term for that is social capital. And what he shows in his data is having high stocks of social capital, has real implications for our economy running well, our schools running well, all the infrastructure, even outside of our government.
Oh yeah. And what do you think, like, us as Americans, like, what do you think we can do to actually help out our the the democracy and our local clubs and stuff?
And these declines. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we wanted to put the action item right in the title, which is why we chose this provocative title, but that, is a real action title, Join or Die. We want people to, the best thing we can hear when someone leaves the theater is, I watched this movie and now I want to join something. And, we want people to take that first step of joining a club. And for people that are already members of organizations, but maybe feeling, tiring, who need a little extra wind at their back, one thing we love hearing when people walk out of screenings is that, they feel energized to kind of recommit their work, even in a climate where they're probably facing falling membership numbers and increasing difficulty in getting people, out of their home to come to events, as these joining muscles have really atrophied. We often use the, metaphor of kind of going to the gym. We go to the gym to stay healthy and fit physically, and, joining and our participation in our civic life is how we stay fit in our community work and in our democracy. And we need to be flexing those muscles a lot more.
Yes. Yeah, because you're right. There's like a ton of like small clubs, and in order for these like smaller clubs to stay open, like they need everyone to join, and
Exactly.
they need help. They need everyone going to these clubs in order to make it last.
Totally. And I think one thing we were also, able to highlight in the film is we get where we want to go a lot faster together. And so, we're able to, with Bob's research, kind of take a longer look at history and look at a lot of the incredible rights movements of the last 100 years in the United States, from civil rights movement, women's rights movement, gay rights movement, the environmental movement. Those movements don't happen on their own. It takes organizing of hundreds and thousands of people over years and years, going to meetings, getting together, getting out to marches. So while our civic life is, also something where we kind of experience fun and experience joy, those are also the spaces where we build power. And that's an incredibly important part of this story too.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you have to, like you were saying, you have to build on it. You have to build
Yes.
Communities, and
Yes.
you definitely have to build. It doesn't happen fast. Like
Totally.
you have to take time, and that saying,
Totally.
like, build it brick by brick.
100%. Amen. Yes. Yeah.
And this film is doing so well at, like, all these film festivals. Like, you both, won best film, like, over and over at different festivals. And how does it feel, like, all the hard work you put into this film to actually win something for it?
Yeah. So I guess what I'll say to that, obviously it feels great to kind of get some recognition after you've been working on something for 7 years, for a long time. You never know when you put something out in the world, is anyone going to watch this? Is this idea going to resonate with people? But I think what's been interesting about having this film on the film festival tour is our film festivals are great civic institutions that bring together a bunch of neighbors to talk about challenging ideas, to get out of their house, to get into these great, third spaces that are our local cinemas. And so, I think we're also preaching to the choir a little bit with some of these, film festival judges, probably because, they're a self-selecting community of people who already care about their civic life. But that has been an amazing part of being on this tour, is meeting all the incredible people running these festivals all over the country. And they each have very unique charm that's very specific to the place and the region where they're based in the US. And it's been a joy to kind of see where the conversation goes in a lot of different directions, depending if we're in a rural area in the West, or screening in New York City, or San Francisco, or Bentonville, Arkansas. The conversations are different depending on, whatever region we're in, which has been fun to see.
Oh wow, okay. And what did you love most about doing the film, about filming all of this?
Think there's the filming process, and then there's also this moment now when it's on tour, where we're meeting a lot of new people that are also working and thinking in this community space. But I think, for me, sometimes I joke a little bit that this film was like a therapy project for me, because when I left the media kind of full time, I was working on it a little bit nights and weekends while I was still a producer at NBC News. I left my job in the media to work on this full time in 2020. But I think in those early years on the film, I was still feeling discouraged myself and working myself through these ideas, and worried, about if we even could turn around, some of these trends, because, I was covering lots of hard stuff in the media: school shootings, the opioid epidemic, rising suicide numbers. And, I was feeling pretty dark about where we were. But over the course of working on this film, in addition to spending time with Bob and his ideas, which have a very hopeful take in the longer vision that they look of that he looks at our history, which he looks to moments where we have turned around some bad trends in similar situations and gotten ourselves out of it before. And I think there's a lot of hope to looking back at moments of history, for lessons there. And then in the film, in addition to Bob, we spent time with 6 community groups and community leaders that are bucking these trends by getting their neighbors out of their house, out of their isolation, and joining together over, shared projects, shared shared love of places, and you know, spending time with those groups, you know, gave me a lot of hope. And I think our hope with the film in highlighting those incredible kind of civic leaders in our film doing the work on the ground of Bob's data, you know, I hope people watching can see something in them that inspires people who leave the theaters to get out and start or join a group.
Okay, okay. And you know, by making the film and working with Bob and stuff, like, did you learn anything that you didn't know while making the film?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely came out with a much deeper knowledge of his data. You know, we highlight 3 of Bob's books in the film. He wrote many more than that. So even just trying to condense all of his ideas into an 1.5 hour long documentary was an incredible challenge. I think at one point we'd narrowed down all his graphs that we liked to like 100 graphs. And then we were like, if we show all these, this will just be a film of graphs, like a PowerPoint presentation. So then we had to get that 100 down to, ultimately, I think maybe we showed 10 graphs in the film.
Okay.
So, you know, definitely a deeper understanding of, you know, Bob's academic work. But I think, you know, the coolest thing for me was, you know, I think we approached Bob initially because we knew not all academics are made for TV. You know, I think we approached Bob originally because he is a very, you know, exuberant speaker, a great translator of tough academic ideas into more digestible information. But over the course of spending this time with him, you know, seeing that Bob is true to that exuberance and hopeful belief that we can turn things around both on and off camera, you know, and he really does not stop even after the cameras stop rolling, you know, trying to shout from the rooftops that we can turn these trends around. We need to turn these trends around. You know, he's been saying that, you know, for 20 years, and I think he's gonna keep on saying that. And, you know, we were, you know, lucky enough, I think when we approached him in 2017, that he put his trust in us to, you know, translate some of these ideas into a new form in film. And I think for those that don't want to pick up the 500-page Bowling Alone, you know, they can get a quick 101 class to his ideas in an 1.5 hours. And then, you know, we absolutely do hope people come out of the theater who want to go read more, do go pick up his books and the books of the other incredible academics that we feature around Bob in the film as well.
Okay. And last thing I will say is, where could fans watch and follow the film and follow you at?
Yeah, so we are this coming Friday launching in theaters on a national theatrical tour. This Friday, July 19th, we'll be premiering in New York with a week of screenings at DCTV in Lower Manhattan. And then we'll be in a series of theaters and screenings at the end of the month out in LA, and then in smaller theaters around the country throughout the summer and fall. If you head over to joinordiefilm.com, we'll be listing all the theaters where people can go to see the film. If there isn't a theater that has the film coming to your community and you would like to host a community screening, we're also on a big community screening tour. And again, if you head to our website, joinordiefilm.com, there's a big button in the upper right-hand corner that says host a screening. And we have, you know, we've had probably 200 community hosted screenings so far since we premiered at South by Southwest last year, and are continuing to run that community tour for the next year or so. And the majority of those groups, I would say, are 25 people or less. The only barrier to entry is you have to get people together to watch the film. If you want to host a community screening, you cannot stream it yet. We hope eventually to be on a streamer, but in the meantime, we're having fun, you know, getting it out into communities and hopefully having productive conversations after those screenings about how to turn these trends around.
Thank you so much for doing this. Have an amazing day.
Thanks. Great to meet Rocco. See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for your interest in